Welcome to Echoes of Justice, the story of Elena Carter, a determined lawyer who stands up against a powerful, resistant system when her best friend is wrongfully detained. What starts as a plea for answers grows into a full-scale movement as Elena confronts corruption within the police department and clashes with Captain Coleman, a leader unwilling to change. As the fight intensifies, Elena's resolve is tested. But with her community by her side, she pushes forward, forming an oversight board to hold the powerful accountable and inspire lasting reform. Will her courage be enough to transform a city built on secrecy and silence? If you're ready for a story of resilience, justice, and the power of one voice, don't forget to comment your thoughts and subscribe for more. Join us now as Elena's fight for truth begins in Echoes of Justice. Elena Carter is introduced as a dedicated, passionate young attorney in a bustling American city. She's just returned from a long day at work at a nonprofit legal center, where she helps low-income residents with legal issues. As she prepares to unwind, she receives a late-night call from her best friend, Lucy Martin. This call will upend her world and push her into a fight she never anticipated. Elena's determination to seek justice is deeply rooted in her family history. Her father, Thomas Carter, the city's first African-American mayor, has spent his life advocating for equality and justice, shaping her beliefs. Growing up in a family known for its values of integrity and resilience, Elena has always felt a quiet pressure to live up to her father's legacy. The Carter family has had their fair share of public challenges and private sacrifices. Elena's mother passed away when she was young, leaving her father to raise her alone while navigating the murky waters of city politics. This backstory informs Elena's fierce loyalty to loved ones and her sense of duty. Lucy, an artist and Elena's closest friend since childhood, calls Elena from a holding cell. She's in tears, recounting how she was walking home from an art gallery show when two officers stopped her for suspicious behavior. Lucy explains that when she calmly asked why they stopped her, the officers became hostile, and one of them, Officer Mike Gray, accused her of resisting. She was handcuffed, humiliated in front of onlookers, and brought to the station without a clear explanation. Elena's heart breaks as she listens to Lucy's account, feeling anger and helplessness rise within her. This isn't just a case for her, it's personal. Lucy, a reserved artist with a deep love for her community, is the last person who would engage in suspicious behavior. The injustice strikes at Elena's core, fueling her desire to fight for her friend and all those who've been similarly mistreated. This scene gives readers insight into Elena's personality. She is protective, empathetic, and driven by a sense of justice. It's also an opportunity to showcase her bond with Lucy, which transcends typical friendships. They've shared countless experiences, from surviving high school to navigating young adulthood, making Lucy's situation even more personal for Elena. After the call, Elena paces her apartment, her mind racing with possibilities. She knows that challenging the police is not without risks. She's seen her father face public backlash for tackling similar issues. Yet, the thought of leaving Lucy to navigate this alone is unbearable. Elena resolves to act, even if it means stepping into territory that feels daunting and dangerous. Elena quickly gathers herself, reviews her knowledge of the legal complaint process, and jots down questions for Lucy. She plans her approach meticulously, knowing that any misstep could undermine Lucy's case. She decides to confront the police department head-on, determined to uncover why Lucy was targeted and humiliated without cause. Throughout this scene, Elena's inner conflict is apparent. She's aware of the uphill battle ahead, but her loyalty and sense of right overpower her hesitation. This moment of decision symbolizes Elena's crossing of a threshold. A personal commitment to challenge a system that she knows too well is resistant to change. Elena arrives at the police station the next day, dressed in a sharp navy blue suit to project authority and professionalism. The station itself is unwelcoming, with harsh fluorescent lights casting a sterile glow over the gray walls. The scent of stale coffee and printer ink fills the air, a sharp reminder of the bureaucracy and impersonal nature of the justice system. As she walks in, Elena notices the officers bustling around, each absorbed in their own tasks, seemingly oblivious to her presence. Her heels click against the tiled floor, the only sound in the otherwise hushed space. The indifferent stares from officers and the general air of disinterest make her feel like an outsider. It's a stark contrast to the atmosphere of compassion she's used to in her nonprofit work, adding to her sense of frustration. The description of the police station provides a subtle critique of the system's disconnect from the people it's supposed to serve, setting the stage for Elena's confrontation. Elena approaches the front desk, where Officer Mike Gray sits, a man in his 30s with a slouched posture and a distracted expression. He taps lazily on his computer, barely looking up as she approaches. When Elena politely introduces herself and asks about Lucy's detainment, Gray's initial response is dismissive. "What do you need?" he mutters without breaking his rhythm, clearly irritated by the interruption. Elena maintains her composure, though her frustration simmers beneath the surface. "I'm here to file a complaint regarding an officer's behavior. My friend Lucy Martin was detained under questionable circumstances." Gray glances at her, his gaze cold and uninterested. Complaints go down the hall. Captain Coleman's office. This casual dismissal adds to Elena's growing irritation. She senses the underlying attitude of indifference, as though Lucy's experience doesn't matter. However, Elena holds back, determined not to let Gray's attitude sway her. This encounter underscores a theme that will run throughout the story: the casual dismissal of civilian complaints. Gray's demeanor reveals a culture of disinterest in accountability, which becomes a key motivator for Elena. Elena follows the hallway to Captain David Coleman's office. The further she goes, the heavier the atmosphere becomes. The sound of murmured conversations fades, and she feels a sense of isolation, as though entering a place where civilian concerns are out of place. She steels herself before knocking on the door, her frustration carefully masked by a calm expression. Inside, Captain Coleman, a man in his 50s with graying hair and a perpetually weary look, sits behind a large desk cluttered with paperwork. The room smells faintly of tobacco and aged wood, adding to the sense of authority Coleman exudes. His expression remains impassive as he gestures for her to enter, barely looking up. "Can I help you?" he asks, his voice curt, as though her presence is an inconvenience. Elena explains the situation, emphasizing that Lucy was detained without cause and treated disrespectfully. Her tone is firm but respectful, conveying her determination to address this professionally. Captain Coleman's expression shifts subtly, a flicker of impatience crossing his face. "Miss Carter, we get complaints all the time. If I were to address every accusation, I'd never get any real work done." This response hits a nerve, and Elena's calm demeanor falters. Her voice tightens as she presses on, insisting that Lucy's treatment was unlawful and unacceptable. Coleman leans back, clearly unmoved. "Look, if you want to fill out a form, be my guest, but don't expect it to go anywhere without actual evidence." His dismissive attitude and unwillingness to listen amplify Elena's frustration, making this interaction one of the story's first emotional peaks. In this scene, Coleman's condescension illustrates his belief in his own authority and the unlikelihood of consequences. He represents a system that's not just flawed, but actively resistant to change, adding depth to the stakes Elena is facing. As she leaves the station, Elena's mind races with anger, frustration, and a renewed sense of purpose. The condescending attitude she faced solidifies her determination to challenge the police department. She reflects on Lucy's experience and the countless others who might not have the resources or resilience to fight back. Elena realizes that her words alone won't create change. She decides to leverage her father's connections and reach out to local media, knowing that public pressure might be the only way to make the department take her seriously. It's a daunting task, but Elena's loyalty to Lucy and her personal sense of justice outweigh her fear. The chapter closes with Elena steeling herself, preparing for the long battle ahead. She recognizes the risks but is unwavering in her decision. This moment marks her commitment to seeing this through, setting up the story's rising action. By expanding on the characters' backgrounds, setting details, emotional struggles, and specific conflicts, this part establishes a solid foundation for Elena's journey. It also hints at deeper themes that will unfold as she confronts the systemic obstacles ahead. Each chapter adds layers to Elena's motivation, helping readers connect with her on a personal level, and provides a compelling start to her story. After her frustrating experience at the police station, Elena decides to confide in her father, Thomas Carter. She invites him for coffee at a quiet cafe, where they can speak privately. Thomas is well respected in the community for his role as mayor, especially for his diplomatic efforts to bridge divides across the city's diverse neighborhoods. Elena has always admired her father's integrity, but has also seen the strain public service has put on him. As they talk, Thomas listens intently, his face serious as she recounts Lucy's experience and her encounter with Captain Coleman. Elena is emotionally raw, still seething from the dismissive treatment at the station. She describes her frustration with the system, and her father responds cautiously, aware of the political implications. "Taking on the police department is no easy task, Elena," he says, concern evident in his tone. "You know the resistance I faced to even mention reform in the past. But if this is what you truly believe in, then I'll support you. Just remember, this fight will take everything you've got." Thomas encourages Elena to proceed carefully, warning her of the personal and professional cost that often comes with challenging established institutions. His experience has shown him the risks of tackling issues of systemic injustice, and he fears for his daughter's well-being. Despite his reservations, he offers his quiet support, reinforcing her confidence while foreshadowing the potential challenges ahead. Determined to make her case strong, Elena dives into researching past complaints against the police department. She searches records, looking for any patterns of misconduct, and interviews local community members who may have similar stories. She wants to ensure that Lucy's case isn't dismissed as a one-off, but rather seen as part of a larger issue. During her investigation, Elena encounters other individuals who share their own encounters with the police, revealing a disturbing pattern of harassment and disrespect. She meets Michael Harris, a high school teacher who was stopped and questioned without cause, and Janice Kim, a shop owner who witnessed rough treatment of a neighbor. These stories reinforce her resolve, each account adding weight to her case. While gathering evidence, Elena meets Ben Taylor, a young, ambitious journalist for the local newspaper. Ben is eager to cover her story, sensing its potential to shed light on the department's questionable practices. He sees an opportunity for the truth to be exposed and offers to publish a series of articles that follow Elena's investigation. His support provides a boost to Elena's efforts, introducing a public element that could hold the department accountable. Elena and Ben discuss their shared goals, forming a bond over their mutual desire for justice. Ben is driven by a personal commitment to honest reporting, and he respects Elena's determination. Together, they brainstorm how to approach the story, focusing on building a strong narrative that will resonate with readers. Ben publishes his first article, detailing Lucy's experience and Elena's confrontation with Captain Coleman. The piece captures public attention, particularly among communities who have experienced similar issues with the police. The article's impact is immediate, sparking online discussions and bringing in additional stories of mistreatment. As more people come forward with their own stories, the pressure on the police department intensifies. Elena receives numerous emails and messages from community members expressing support. Some share similar accounts of mistreatment, and the situation gains traction on social media, where citizens call for reform. The article does not sit well with Captain Coleman. He views it as a personal attack and a smear campaign against his department. Furious, he calls Elena into his office under the guise of discussing her concerns, but instead warns her about the consequences of her actions. "Ms. Carter," he says with thinly veiled hostility, "you're making a lot of noise, but without proof, this will only hurt your credibility. I suggest you think carefully about your next steps." Despite Coleman's intimidation tactics, Elena's resolve only deepens. She leaves his office more determined than ever to bring the truth to light, realizing that the department's resistance signifies that she is indeed striking a nerve. Not all community members are supportive. Some people express doubt, worried that Elena's fight could destabilize the relationship between citizens and the police. Others fear retaliation, believing that her actions will make the department even more unapproachable. This skepticism troubles Elena, who begins to question if she's doing more harm than good. Lucy, now recovering from her experience, becomes a source of support and strength for Elena. They meet at a quiet park, and as they talk, Lucy shares her gratitude and reassures Elena that she's on the right path. Lucy's bravery and determination inspire Elena to continue, knowing that she's not just fighting for her friend, but for everyone who has been wronged. In another conversation with Ben, he reassures Elena that true change is always met with resistance. "The closer you get to the truth," he says, "the harder they'll push back. But it just means you're on the right track." This encouragement reignites her confidence, and Elena pushes forward, with Lucy and Ben as her pillars of support. Elena and Ben decide to organize a community meeting to give people a platform to share their experiences publicly. The event is held at a local community center, and attendance far exceeds their expectations. People from all walks of life gather, filling the room and spilling into the hallways. One by one, attendees share their stories. Michael Harris, the teacher Elena had interviewed, recounts his fear and humiliation when he was stopped and frisked without cause. Janice Kim speaks about witnessing police misconduct in her neighborhood, expressing frustration at being unable to intervene. Each testimony adds to the emotional weight of the gathering, and the room is charged with empathy, anger, and a shared desire for accountability. These moments build a sense of collective urgency, galvanizing the attendees to demand change. Coleman, aware of the meeting, sends officers to observe under the guise of maintaining order. Their presence is intimidating, but Elena and Ben refuse to be deterred. This tactic backfires, as attendees interpret it as a show of control and intimidation, strengthening their resolve to stand up. As the meeting draws to a close, Elena gives a powerful speech, thanking everyone for their bravery and reiterating her commitment to seeking justice. She promises to keep fighting and urges the community to stand united. This speech serves as a turning point, marking Elena's shift from a single advocate to a symbol of resilience and a voice for those without one. The chapter ends on a high note, with community members rallying around Elena. They form a support network, pledging to continue sharing their stories and amplifying the fight for accountability. This scene captures the community's growing strength and sets the stage for Elena's next steps. This part expands on Elena's journey, emphasizing the challenges and triumphs of building a case against a powerful institution. Her alliance with Ben and the support from the community heighten the stakes, while the public backlash and Coleman's increasing hostility add tension and suspense. Each chapter contributes to the rising action, pushing Elena closer to a confrontation that will test her dedication to justice. Elena receives word that her case will be heard at a local public forum organized by the city council to address complaints against the police. This hearing is a pivotal moment. It's the first time she'll present her evidence in a formal setting, and she knows that it could impact public perception of her cause. Determined to make a strong case, Elena spends days preparing, reviewing witness statements and organizing her thoughts. She's nervous but fueled by the stories she's gathered. The public has started to view her as a voice for justice, which gives her both courage and pressure to succeed. Her father, Thomas, offers guidance, reminding her to stay composed and respectful, even if the opposition tries to undermine her. His words remind her of her purpose, steadying her nerves. Meanwhile, Lucy and Ben are by her side, offering support and encouraging her to stay true to her mission. In quiet moments, Elena reflects on past experiences of injustice and how they shaped her resolve. She recalls her childhood watching her father battle prejudice and the pride she felt seeing him stand up for those without a voice. These flashbacks build depth to her motivation, showing her determination isn't just about Lucy, it's also a way to honor her father's legacy. The hearing room is filled with a mix of community members, city officials, journalists, and a few police officers. The tension in the air is palpable as people wait for the proceedings to begin. Captain Coleman is there as well, seated at the front with a calm but guarded expression, projecting authority and control. The council moderator introduces the purpose of the hearing and invites Elena to speak first. As she takes the podium, Elena feels the weight of everyone's eyes on her. She glances at Lucy in the crowd, who gives her a reassuring nod, filling Elena with a sense of purpose. Elena begins her statement, speaking passionately yet clearly. She describes Lucy's experience and presents the patterns of harassment and misconduct her research uncovered, calling attention to the real-life impact of these abuses on her friends and neighbors. Her words resonate with the audience, especially as she highlights the personal pain and fear that citizens feel due to the lack of accountability in law enforcement. The crowd listens intently, some nodding in agreement, while others look visibly moved by her words. The presence of so many supportive faces strengthens Elena's confidence. Community members begin whispering among themselves, creating a growing undercurrent of outrage that adds to the room's emotional tension. When Elena finishes, Captain Coleman takes the stand to respond. He addresses the room with a detached tone, stating that while mistakes can happen, these accusations are exaggerated and baseless. He downplays the incidents as isolated and insists that his officers follow proper protocol. His dismissive attitude infuriates some members of the audience, who begin murmuring in protest. Coleman looks directly at Elena and smirks, subtly implying that she's in over her head. He turns to the counsel and reiterates that his department is overburdened with real cases and doesn't have time to address frivolous complaints. This dismissal only fuels the crowd's anger. People in the audience begin to shout out, calling for accountability and justice, which further rattles the city council members. The hearing moderator has to ask the audience to maintain decorum, but the tension in the room is thick, and the frustration is clear. Elena feels her anger bubbling up, but reminds herself to stay composed. Coleman's attitude infuriates her, yet she remains calm, knowing that her self-control strengthens her credibility. This internal struggle shows her growth, as she realizes that dignity in the face of adversity can be her greatest tool. Lucy is called to testify, and the room falls silent as she approaches the podium. Elena watches as her friend's hands tremble slightly, but Lucy's voice remains steady. She describes the night of her arrest, recounting every detail of her interaction with the officers, from their harsh tone to her confusion and fear. Lucy's story resonates deeply with the audience, particularly as she describes the humiliation and sense of powerlessness she felt. Her voice catches at times, and tears well up in her eyes, but she presses on, determined to share her truth. Her courage has a profound effect on the room, with some people visibly moved by her testimony. Coleman's expression tightens as Lucy speaks, sensing that her words are stirring sympathy. He subtly rolls his eyes and mutters under his breath, a dismissive gesture that does not go unnoticed by those in the room. His disdain only strengthens the community's resolve, and more people begin to whisper their support for Lucy. Following Lucy, several other community members come forward, each sharing their own experiences with the police department. Michael Harris, the high school teacher, describes being stopped without cause in front of his students, his dignity stripped away in an instant. Janice Kim, the shop owner, recounts witnessing aggressive policing in her neighborhood and feeling helpless to intervene. Each testimony is powerful in its own way, revealing a pattern of abuse and systemic disregard for civilian rights. The collective stories form a tapestry of injustice that no one can ignore, further emphasizing that Lucy's experience was not an isolated incident, but part of a broader problem. With each testimony, the room grows increasingly unified. Community members start nodding, voicing their agreement, and calling for action. The shared outrage and determination to make a difference fill the space with energy, giving Elena the sense that her mission is no longer hers alone. It belongs to the entire community. As the hearing concludes, the City Council acknowledges the overwhelming evidence and public sentiment, recommending that the police department explore ways to improve accountability. They suggest piloting a community oversight board to handle complaints, a small but significant step toward reform. The announcement is met with applause from the audience, who see this as a small but meaningful victory. Elena feels a mixture of relief and pride, knowing that her efforts have not been in vain. The sense of progress is palpable, and the crowd's support reinforces her belief that they can create real change. As the crowd disperses, Elena catches a glimpse of Coleman, his face tight with frustration as he realizes the tide may be turning. He leaves quickly, his earlier confidence visibly shaken. This moment marks a turning point, showing that even those in power are not immune to accountability when the community stands united. As she leaves the hearing, Elena feels an overwhelming sense of fulfillment, but is also aware that this is just the beginning. The fight for justice and reform will require more effort, and the community will need to stay vigilant. She resolves to continue her journey, feeling more determined than ever to make a lasting impact. In this section, Elena experiences her first taste of victory, but it's a modest one, underscoring that this is only the beginning of a much longer struggle. The emotional climax here is built through the community's solidarity and the collective power of their voices. Coleman's reaction hints at the potential challenges ahead, setting the stage for Part 4, where the opposition will escalate their pushback, forcing Elena to confront even more significant obstacles in her quest for justice. Following the hearing's small victory, Elena starts to feel the backlash. The police department, feeling threatened by the public support for oversight, launches a counterattack. Anonymous sources within the department leak statements to the press, describing Elena's campaign as anti-police and divisive. The media coverage paints her efforts in a negative light, focusing on the potential harm to the city's safety and creating doubt among some in the community. Elena begins to receive anonymous threats through phone calls and emails. At first they're subtle, suggesting she drop the case for her own good. However, as she continues her work, the threats escalate, becoming more explicit and frightening. The implication is clear. Some people don't want her challenging the status quo. These threats start to wear on Elena, affecting her sense of safety and confidence. She questions whether she's putting herself and those she loves in danger. The fear becomes a constant presence, invading her thoughts and dreams, causing her to doubt if the fight is worth the personal toll. This moment is a turning point for Elena, as she wrestles with whether to keep going or protect herself. Lucy notices the strain Elena is under and reaches out to comfort her. They meet at a quiet cafe, where Lucy, seeing Elena's exhaustion and anxiety, reminds her of why they began this fight. She tells Elena that she's proud of her, that the community needs someone like her to stand up for what's right. Lucy's words are a balm, helping Elena see that the impact she's having goes beyond herself. "You're not just fighting for me, Elena," Lucy says, her voice steady. "You're fighting for everyone who's ever been silenced, for everyone who feels like they don't have a voice." Thomas, too, becomes a crucial source of support. Seeing the toll the threats have taken on his daughter, he encourages her to remain strong. He reminds her of his own experiences in public service, sharing stories of the obstacles he faced and the courage it took to persevere. Their conversation deepens Elena's appreciation for her father and reinforces her sense of purpose. "There will always be people who resist change," Thomas tells her, "but progress is made by those who keep going, even when the road is rough." Not everyone in the community supports Elena's campaign. Some people fear that challenging the police will lead to increased crime and tension within neighborhoods. Others are concerned that her activism could lead to strained relations between the community and law enforcement, making police less responsive to their needs. One day, Elena encounters George Simmons, a longtime resident and business owner, who bluntly tells her that her actions are causing more harm than good. He worries that if the police lose authority, their neighborhood's safety will be at risk. This moment stings Elena, as she realizes that her fight isn't as universally supported as she thought. Elena reflects on these criticisms, feeling the weight of her responsibility. She begins to question if she's doing the right thing, wondering if her pursuit of justice might unintentionally create divisions within her community. This chapter explores her vulnerability and self-doubt, deepening her internal conflict as she contemplates the cost of her actions. Ben, the journalist who has been covering Elena's story, sees her struggle and steps in to remind her of the importance of her mission. He assures her that media scrutiny and public debate are signs that her efforts are making an impact. He suggests that the backlash is proof of how much the system fears change. "People don't push back unless they're afraid," Ben tells her. "And they're afraid because you're challenging something they thought would never be questioned." To combat the negativity, Elena and Ben decide to organize another community meeting. focusing on bringing people together to share their stories of police mistreatment. They believe that if the community hears each other's experiences firsthand, they will understand the need for change. At the meeting, Elena delivers a heartfelt speech, speaking openly about her doubts, fears, and the difficulties of taking on an institution as powerful as the police department. Her vulnerability and honesty resonate deeply with the attendees, who respond with a renewed sense of unity and support. This moment marks a pivotal point, restoring Elena's confidence and solidifying her role as a community leader. Captain Coleman is frustrated by the public attention Elena's campaign has attracted. He begins to use more aggressive tactics to undermine her credibility. Officers start stopping Elena's friends and associates for minor infractions, hoping to intimidate them and reduce support for her cause. Elena is called into Coleman's office once again. This time, the tension between them is palpable. Coleman doesn't bother with pleasantries, directly accusing her of damaging the community and inciting division. His tone is condescending and hostile, and he warns her to stop stirring up trouble before it gets out of hand. Despite feeling rattled, Elena refuses to back down. She challenges Coleman, pointing out that if his department truly served the community, they wouldn't have to fear transparency and oversight. Her courage catches Coleman off guard, but he recovers quickly, his eyes narrowing as he mutters, "You have no idea what you're getting into." As Elena leaves, Coleman calls after her, his voice laced with warning. "This city isn't run by ideals, Miss Carter. Sooner or later you'll learn that." His words echo in her mind, a chilling reminder of the forces she's up against. This confrontation intensifies the stakes, as Elena realizes just how much Coleman and the department are willing to resist change. The stress of the threats, the community's division, and Coleman's intimidation tactics start to take a toll on Elena's mental health. She feels worn out, struggling to find the energy to keep going. For the first time, she seriously considers giving up, thinking of how much easier her life would be if she let the issue go. Lucy senses Elena's distress and insists on a night in, away from the spotlight. As they share a quiet meal, Lucy listens patiently to Elena's fears and doubts. She reminds Elena of the impact she's already had, and how many people look up to her. Lucy's support and encouragement reignite Elena's sense of purpose, helping her see that her efforts are making a difference. Buoyed by Lucy's words, Elena finds a renewed strength within herself. She decides that she won't let fear and intimidation stop her. She realizes that standing up to injustice means facing uncomfortable truths and difficult battles, and she resolves to keep fighting for the community's rights, no matter the personal cost. Elena reaches out to Ben and Thomas, sharing her idea to launch a broader campaign that will call for permanent reform in the police department. Together, they strategize ways to bring in more community leaders, activists, and media allies to amplify their message and keep the issue in the public eye. Through her father, Elena gains access to influential figures in the city, including local council members and respected activists. This network of support strengthens her campaign, adding legitimacy and visibility to her efforts. The alliance represents a turning point, showing that Elena's cause has grown beyond just one voice. It's now a movement. As Part 4 concludes, Elena feels a renewed sense of hope. Despite the setbacks, she has managed to gather an army of allies who are equally committed to achieving justice and accountability. She stands at the forefront of a cause that's gaining unstoppable momentum, preparing herself for the challenges that lie ahead. With Lucy, Ben, her father, and the community behind her, she feels ready to face whatever comes next. This part of the story heightens the emotional stakes by introducing setbacks, internal conflict, and moments of doubt that test Elena's resilience. The pushback from the police department, community skepticism, and Coleman's intimidation intensify the obstacles in her path. By the end of this section, Elena has overcome a significant crisis of confidence, emerging stronger and more determined to pursue her cause, setting up the next phase of her battle for justice. With momentum growing, Elena and her allies organize a large rally to show the city's demand for police reform. They plan for it to be held at a central park, where community members can gather to listen to speeches, share stories, and demonstrate solidarity. Ben uses his platform as a journalist to spread the word, publishing articles that emphasize the rally's importance in the push for justice. Through these articles, he highlights the powerful testimonies from previous community meetings, creating a sense of urgency and inviting all residents to participate. As the rally date approaches, the anticipation and support grow, with local organizations and activists offering their resources to make the event impactful. Elena prepares herself mentally and emotionally for the rally, aware that it could be a defining moment in her journey. She spends time with Lucy, who reminds her of the importance of staying authentic and speaking from the heart. This chapter builds the emotional weight of the rally, presenting it as both a personal and public milestone in Elena's fight for justice. The rally draws an impressive turnout. People from all walks of life fill the park, holding signs, banners, and wearing T-shirts with messages calling for accountability and change. The sight of so many supporters fills Elena with hope and pride, showing that the community is ready for reform. One by one, community members step up to share their stories. Lucy, her voice strong and confident, speaks first. She recounts her experience and the emotional toll it took, emphasizing the need for a police system that serves and protects everyone equally. Her words resonate deeply with the crowd, many of whom have faced similar injustices. Following Lucy, other speakers share their experiences. Michael Harris, the high school teacher, talks about the humiliation he endured in front of his students, and Janice Kim, the shop owner, describes witnessing her neighbor's harassment. Each story builds on the next, painting a powerful picture of the systemic problems within the police department and reinforcing the community's demand for change. Finally, Elena takes the stage. She feels the weight of everyone's expectations, but she speaks with conviction, expressing her commitment to justice. She tells the crowd that their voices are powerful and that together they can hold the system accountable. She urges them to keep pushing for reform, no matter how difficult the road ahead. Elena's speech electrifies the audience, igniting a sense of shared purpose. By the end, the crowd is chanting in unison, their voices echoing through the park as a testament to their solidarity. This chapter ends on a high note, symbolizing a pivotal victory for Elena and her movement. The rally's success does not sit well with Captain Coleman. Feeling his authority challenged, he begins to intensify his efforts to undermine Elena's movement. He uses his influence to pressure city officials, arguing that the community's activism is creating disorder and inciting hostility toward law enforcement. To weaken the movement, Coleman orders officers to scrutinize Elena's close allies, including Ben and Lucy. Ben is repeatedly questioned by officers while covering other stories, and Lucy receives unwarranted fines and warnings for minor issues at her art studio. These tactics create an atmosphere of intimidation, casting a shadow over the progress made at the rally. Seeing her friends targeted shakes Elena. She realizes that Coleman is willing to use underhanded tactics to suppress their voices, and she worries about how far he might go. Despite her frustration, Elena remains determined to push forward, recognizing that these retaliatory actions are signs that the movement is making an impact. Ben publishes a detailed article about the rally, including the stories shared by community members and the retaliatory tactics employed by Coleman's department. The article gains widespread attention, catching the interest of national news outlets. As the media coverage intensifies, more people from outside the community begin to support Elena's cause, bringing her story into the public spotlight. As the movement gains visibility, activist organizations from across the country reach out to offer their support. Some offer resources for legal aid, while others provide connections to influential advocates and public figures. This network of support helps Elena realize that the fight for justice extends beyond her city, giving her a renewed sense of purpose. Amid the positive media attention, Elena takes a quiet moment to reflect on the journey thus far. She feels a deep sense of gratitude for her friends and allies, recognizing that the movement's success is due to the collective power of everyone involved. This reflection strengthens her commitment to seeing the fight through no matter the obstacles. With the movement's success and growing public support, Elena decides to formally propose the creation of a civilian oversight board to the city council. This board would have the authority to investigate complaints, ensure accountability, and oversee reforms within the police department. The proposal gains traction among council members, but some express concerns about potential conflicts with the police. To strengthen the proposal, Elena and her team organize meetings with local leaders, activists, and city officials. They gather statements of support and endorsements from respected figures, including educators, business owners, and faith leaders. This coalition of support highlights the community's commitment to lasting reform and reinforces the proposal's legitimacy. The City Council agrees to review the proposal but expresses reservations. Some members worry about the potential costs and logistics of implementing an oversight board, while others fear backlash from the police department. Despite these hesitations, they agree to a preliminary hearing to discuss the proposal's feasibility, marking a small step forward in Elena's quest for reform. As the council prepares to review the oversight board proposal, opposition groups rally against it. These groups, which include both police unions and some pro-police community members, argue that the board would undermine law enforcement's authority and create unnecessary bureaucracy. They hold counter-rallies and run ads promoting the importance of strong policing. Elena encounters people in her own community who question the need for reform. Some argue that police oversight will increase crime, while others believe it's an unnecessary interference with law enforcement. Elena finds herself in difficult conversations with neighbors and friends who don't fully support her cause. These divisions create emotional strain as she struggles to bridge the gap between different perspectives within her community. Despite the pushback, Elena reaffirms her commitment to the oversight board. She believes that true justice requires accountability, and that the current system cannot be trusted without an independent body to oversee its actions. This renewed resolve drives her to keep pushing forward, even as the opposition grows louder. Elena and her team spend countless hours refining their proposal, gathering data, and organizing testimonies from community members and experts who support the oversight board. They create a comprehensive presentation that addresses potential concerns, demonstrating how the board would improve transparency and public trust. As the hearing approaches, Elena shares her concerns and hopes with her closest friends and family. Her father, Thomas, offers steady encouragement, reminding her that meaningful change is rarely easy. Lucy, ever the supportive friend, expresses her pride in Elena's dedication, helping to bolster her confidence. The night before the hearing, Elena finds herself unable to sleep, thinking about the implications of her proposal. The stakes feel higher than ever, and she knows that the outcome of the hearing could determine the future of her movement. This chapter ends with a sense of suspense, setting the stage for the high-stakes council hearing. The day of the hearing arrives, and the council chamber is packed with supporters, opponents, and media. Elena takes the podium, delivering a compelling presentation on the need for a civilian oversight board. She shares the stories she's collected, emphasizing the importance of accountability and community trust in law enforcement. Community members, including Lucy, Michael Harris, and Janice Kim, step forward to share their experiences and support the oversight board. Their testimonies are heartfelt and raw, painting a clear picture of the community's need for justice. The audience listens intently, with many visibly moved by their stories. Representatives from the police union and pro-police groups present their counter-arguments, insisting that the oversight board would interfere with the department's work. They argue that the board would lead to overreach and mistrust, creating tension between the community and police. Their arguments create a tense atmosphere in the room, as supporters of both sides exchange heated glances. After hearing both sides, the council members engage in a tense deliberation, weighing the pros and cons of the proposal. The hearing ends without a final decision, with the council announcing they will review the evidence and announce their decision in the coming days. This unresolved outcome leaves Elena and her supporters on edge, uncertain of what the future holds. As they await the council's decision, Elena and her allies experience a mix of hope and anxiety. They gather at Lucy's studio, reflecting on the journey they've undertaken and the impact they've already made. Each person shares their thoughts on the potential for change, with some cautiously optimistic and others fearful of disappointment. During this waiting period, the community remains actively engaged, holding smaller rallies and meetings to maintain momentum. Supporters create petitions, write letters to council members, and organize informational sessions to educate others about the Oversight Board's benefits. The chapter ends with Elena feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Regardless of the council's decision, she knows that her movement has sparked something powerful within the community. As she prepares for whatever comes next, she is more committed than ever to the cause, feeling the strength of the people behind her. In this section, the movement reaches new heights as Elena's push for reform gains more visibility and support, but also faces increasing resistance. The proposal for the Civilian Oversight Board brings the fight to the council, highlighting the community's determination for lasting change. As the story builds toward the council's decision, the tension and anticipation continue to grow, setting the stage for an emotional and impactful next phase in Elena's journey. The day of the council's decision finally arrives, and Elena, Lucy, Ben, and the rest of her supporters gather in the packed council chambers. Tension fills the air as the council members file in, taking their seats with serious expressions. The council chairperson announces that after reviewing all the testimonies, evidence, and arguments, they have reached a decision regarding the proposed Civilian Oversight Board. After a suspenseful moment, the chairperson declares that the council has approved the establishment of a Civilian Oversight Board. The decision is met with cheers from Elena's supporters, many of whom embrace each other in celebration. Tears of joy fill Elena's eyes as she realizes that all their work has led to a historic victory. The council outlines that the board will be tasked with investigating complaints, promoting transparency, and working with law enforcement to improve community relations. Elena feels a surge of pride and relief. The emotions she has been holding in through all the challenges and setbacks finally pour out. Lucy and Ben join her, sharing in the joy and sense of accomplishment. For the first time, they feel that real change is within reach. This moment marks a significant emotional climax, symbolizing a breakthrough in Elena's fight for justice. From across the room, Elena catches sight of Captain Coleman, who looks visibly displeased. He exchanges tense glances with other officers, who leave the chambers in silence. Elena knows that this victory will not sit well with Coleman and the department, but her determination only strengthens, sensing that this change is the beginning of a better future. With the council's approval, the focus shifts to building the Civilian Oversight Board structure. Elena, alongside city officials and community leaders, participates in meetings to determine the board's specific powers, procedures, and goals. They debate the best ways to ensure that the board has real authority while maintaining a balanced relationship with the police department. The City Council offers Elena an advisory position on the Oversight Board, recognizing her dedication and her role as a leader within the community. Though hesitant at first, Elena accepts, feeling that her involvement will help ensure the board's success. This new role elevates her responsibilities, and she begins to realize how much her voice can influence real change. During meetings, Elena faces pushback from representatives of the police department, who worry about the board's impact on their operations. She navigates these discussions with diplomacy, balancing her vision for accountability with the need to establish a collaborative approach. These conversations test her patience, but also allow her to grow as a leader. As plans for the Oversight Board progress, Captain Coleman and police unions escalate their opposition. They argue that the board will interfere with police duties and create unnecessary bureaucracy. The union's representatives make public statements that criticize the board, claiming that it will tie the hands of officers and weaken the city's security. Ben covers these debates closely in his articles, ensuring that the public stays informed. His reporting highlights the differences in perspective between the police and the community. Public opinion becomes increasingly polarized, with some residents supporting the police's stance, while others see the Oversight Board as essential for transparency and trust. Elena feels the weight of this resistance, realizing that while the council's approval was a victory, there are still substantial hurdles ahead. She questions her ability to unify the community and the police, but Lucy reminds her that change often faces pushback. Buoyed by her friend's support, Elena resolves to continue advocating for the board, no matter the obstacles. To celebrate the approval of the Oversight Board, community members organize a public gathering at the same park where the rally was held. It's a joyous occasion with music, food, and speeches from those who supported the fight for reform. This event provides Elena and her supporters with a chance to reflect on how far they've come. Elena gives a speech, expressing her gratitude to everyone who shared their stories and stood by her throughout the journey. She highlights the power of community and the impact that collective voices can have on creating meaningful change. Lucy, Ben, and other key supporters also share words of encouragement, celebrating the strength and resilience of the community. The event reinforces a sense of hope and unity among attendees. They see this victory as proof that they have the power to shape their city's future. Many express a renewed commitment to supporting the Oversight Board and ensuring that its mission of accountability is upheld. This chapter highlights the emotional reward of their efforts, bringing the community together in shared pride and optimism. The Civilian Oversight Board holds its first official meeting, with Elena, other community representatives, and selected city officials in attendance. They review initial cases, focusing on complaints that have gone unresolved. The weight of responsibility is felt by each member, as they realize the significance of their role in shaping a new era of accountability. In this meeting, the board discusses how to prioritize cases, set protocols for investigation, and ensure transparency in their processes. Elena and the board members emphasize the importance of impartiality, aiming to build trust with both the community and the police department. This initial discussion establishes the board's commitment to fair and thorough investigations. Captain Coleman attends the meeting, as mandated by the City Council, but his cooperation is reluctant at best. He expresses his concerns about the board's influence and its potential to interfere with police matters. Elena counters his skepticism with professionalism, showing her dedication to creating a constructive relationship between the board and the department. This exchange illustrates the ongoing tension but also hints at the possibility of future collaboration. The board receives its first case, involving a citizen complaint against an officer for excessive force during a routine stop. The case is complex, with conflicting testimonies and a lack of video evidence. The board's investigation will be a test of its ability to handle cases fairly and build credibility. Elena and her fellow board members review witness statements, examine evidence, and conduct interviews. As they work through the details, the emotional weight of the case becomes apparent. The complainant shares how the incident has impacted their life, adding urgency to the board's task of ensuring justice. After a thorough investigation, the board finds that the officer in question violated protocol, leading to disciplinary action. This decision sends a powerful message that misconduct will not go unchecked. The community reacts positively to the board's ruling, seeing it as a meaningful step toward accountability. For Elena, this success reaffirms her commitment and marks another victory in her fight for justice. As the board begins its work, Elena takes a moment to reflect on her personal journey. She recalls the challenges, doubts, and small victories that brought her to this point. The experience has transformed her, strengthening her belief in the power of persistence and community. In a heartfelt conversation with her father, Thomas, Elena expresses her gratitude for his support and wisdom. Thomas, in turn, shares his pride in her accomplishments, acknowledging her courage in the face of adversity. Lucy and Ben also take time to celebrate with her, reflecting on how far they have come as friends and allies in this journey. With her successes and lessons in mind, Elena resolves to continue her work on the Oversight Board with integrity and dedication. She understands that her role is not just to investigate cases, but to foster a culture of respect and transparency between the community and law enforcement. This chapter highlights Elena's growth, portraying her as a stronger, more resilient leader. The board's establishment and its successful first case inspire renewed confidence within the community. Citizens feel a sense of empowerment, knowing that their voices are being heard. The Oversight Board's presence becomes a symbol of accountability and justice, representing a brighter future for the city. As the story concludes, Elena and her allies discuss ways to maintain the board's effectiveness and explore further reforms that could improve police-community relations. They plan to offer workshops, community forums, and educational programs to foster understanding and cooperation. The final scene shows Elena walking through her neighborhood, reflecting on the journey that began with a single act of injustice and evolved into a movement for lasting change. She feels a sense of peace and purpose, knowing that she has made a difference. With her friends, family, and community by her side, she looks forward to the future with optimism, confident that they have built something meaningful and enduring. In this section, Elena and her community achieve a powerful victory as the Civilian Oversight Board is officially established and begins its work. This part emphasizes the emotional and social impact of their success, celebrating the progress made while acknowledging the ongoing challenges. The story reaches a satisfying climax, with Elena emerging as a dedicated advocate for justice, backed by a community that believes in the power of collective action and accountability. This sets the stage for a hopeful and inspiring conclusion to her journey. The Oversight Board has been officially established, but the initial excitement soon meets resistance. Many officers within the police department, including Captain Coleman's allies, expressed distrust and resentment toward the board. Some officers refused to cooperate fully, causing delays in investigations and obstructing the board's processes. This resistance creates an atmosphere of tension and undermines the board's authority. Elena finds herself frustrated with the board's slow progress as cases pile up and investigations get delayed due to lack of cooperation. She begins to understand the complexity of institutional reform, realizing that changing the system requires not just rules, but also shifts in mindset and culture. This chapter delves into her struggle to maintain morale among the board members, many of whom share her frustrations. As she faces these challenges, Elena feels increasingly isolated. The initial support from the community and city council feels distant as she wrestles with the day-to-day issues of the board's work. She begins to question her ability to enact change, feeling weighed down by the enormity of the task before her. The community, which had been energized by the board's establishment, begins to grow impatient as they see little visible progress. Residents who submitted complaints express frustration, believing that the board's lack of results reflects poorly on its effectiveness. This backlash places additional pressure on Elena, as she realizes that public support is wavering. During a public forum organized to provide updates on the board's progress, Elena faces tough questions from residents who feel disillusioned. They demand to know why certain cases are still unresolved, and question whether the Oversight Board is truly capable of holding the police accountable. This moment challenges Elena's leadership, as she tries to balance transparency with the reality of the board's struggles. After the forum, Lucy approaches Elena to reassure her. She reminds Elena of the positive impact they've already made, and encourages her to keep pushing forward, even if progress is slower than expected. Lucy's support bolsters Elena's resolve, reminding her that the journey toward justice is often long and complicated. This conversation renews Elena's commitment, helping her regain perspective. Determined to make the Oversight Board more effective, Elena reaches out to individual officers within the police department who have shown openness to reform. She hopes that by building relationships with these officers, they can help foster a culture of cooperation and transparency. These interactions highlight the possibility of allyship within the department, showing that not all officers are resistant to change. One officer, Ethan Torres, expresses a desire for better relations between the police and the community. He shares his belief that accountability benefits everyone, including officers who want to restore public trust. Ethan becomes an important ally, helping Elena understand the internal challenges officers face and offering his insight on ways the board could approach its work more effectively. With Ethan's support, Elena initiates small joint meetings between the board and select officers to discuss areas of common ground. Though the progress is gradual, these meetings lay the groundwork for improved communication and show that cooperation is possible. This chapter emphasizes the importance of bridge building and the value of partnerships in creating lasting change. As the months go by, the stress of managing the Oversight Board, facing constant resistance, and dealing with community expectations begins to take a toll on Elena's mental and physical health. She feels drained and starts to experience symptoms of burnout, struggling to maintain the energy and optimism that initially drove her. Noticing her exhaustion, her father, Thomas, invites her over for dinner. During a candid conversation, Thomas reminds her of the importance of taking care of herself. He shares his own experiences with burnout during his years in office, emphasizing that the fight for justice is a marathon, not a sprint. His wisdom provides Elena with a new perspective, encouraging her to prioritize self-care so she can continue her work effectively. Inspired by her father's words, Elena takes a few days away from her work to recharge. She spends time reflecting on her journey, reconnecting with the reasons she took on this fight. By the end of her break, she feels a renewed sense of purpose and a more balanced approach to her role on the board. This chapter reinforces the theme of resilience, showing that even the most dedicated advocates need time to restore themselves. The Oversight Board receives a high-profile case involving allegations of racial profiling during a traffic stop. This case has garnered significant media attention, and the public eagerly awaits the board's findings. Elena understands that this investigation is a pivotal moment for the board, as a fair and transparent outcome could strengthen public confidence. Elena and her team conduct a meticulous investigation, gathering witness statements, reviewing body cam footage, and consulting legal experts. They work closely with Officer Ethan Torres, who offers insight on police protocols and helps the board understand the nuances of law enforcement procedures. This collaboration enhances the investigation's credibility and demonstrates the board's commitment to fairness. After a thorough review, the board concludes that the officer involved acted inappropriately and recommends disciplinary action. This decision, made transparently and based on solid evidence, is welcomed by the public. The community celebrates this as a win, feeling that the board is finally fulfilling its purpose. For Elena, this success is a deeply validating moment, reinforcing her belief in the board's potential. Following the board's successful handling of the high-profile case, the media begins to cover the Oversight Board in a more favorable light. Ben writes an article praising the board's transparency and commitment to justice, and other outlets follow suit, recognizing the board's role in fostering accountability. The positive media attention helps to restore public trust, and community members express renewed confidence in the board. Residents who were previously skeptical now see the board as a meaningful force for change, and more people come forward with complaints and stories, feeling assured that they will be treated fairly. The Oversight Board starts to be seen as a symbol of accountability and a source of hope for the community. Elena takes pride in the board's accomplishments and feels a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that her efforts have contributed to this shift. This chapter emphasizes the importance of public trust in sustaining reform and highlights the impact of visible successes. As the board completes its first year, Elena reflects on the progress they have made. The board has investigated numerous cases, implemented protocols for fair reviews, and established a reputation for transparency. She realizes that, while there is still much work to be done, they have laid a strong foundation for lasting reform. In a meeting with Lucy, Ben, and Ethan, Elena discusses the board's future goals. They brainstorm additional reforms, including community outreach programs and officer training on bias reduction. Their conversation is filled with optimism and determination, reflecting their shared commitment to continuing the work they've started. The city organizes a community event to celebrate the Oversight Board's first year, inviting residents, activists, and city officials. The event serves as an opportunity for people to come together, honor the board's achievements, and recognize the collective effort that brought about these changes. The speeches and stories shared at the event highlight the board's impact, reinforcing the power of persistence and community action. Elena takes a quiet moment during the event to reflect on the incredible journey she has undertaken. From standing up for her friend Lucy to becoming a symbol of change, she feels a deep sense of pride and gratitude. She realizes that this experience has not only changed the community, but has also transformed her as a person, strengthening her resilience, leadership, and compassion. Inspired by her journey, Elena begins to consider a future in public service. She realizes that her passion for justice could lead her to roles where she can continue to create change on a broader scale. Though she is uncertain of the specifics, The thought of expanding her impact excites her, opening up new possibilities for her career and personal growth. As the event draws to a close, Elena walks through the crowd, feeling a profound connection to the people around her. She understands that the fight for justice is ongoing and that her role in this journey is far from over. With her community by her side, she feels a renewed sense of purpose and optimism, ready to face the future with strength and hope. In this section, Elena faces the realities of implementing change, from initial resistance within the police department to managing public expectations. Through her perseverance, she builds partnerships, navigates personal struggles, and ultimately leads the board to a visible success, helping to restore community trust. This falling action underscores the long-term challenges and rewards of advocacy, highlighting Elena's growth and the Oversight Board's potential for lasting impact as they move forward in their journey. As the Oversight Board becomes more effective and visible, tensions escalate within the police department. Captain Coleman and key members of the police union feel threatened by the board's growing influence. They initiate an organized pushback, issuing statements that accuse the board of undermining police morale and compromising officer safety. The police union holds a press conference, framing the Oversight Board as a hindrance to effective policing. These accusations create a stir, sparking a fierce debate within the community and the media. Supporters of the board respond with a call for greater accountability, emphasizing that transparency strengthens trust between the police and citizens. The escalating public discourse places intense pressure on both the board and the department. Despite the intense scrutiny and criticism, Elena remains steadfast. She understands that Captain Coleman's actions are an attempt to weaken the board's influence, and she is determined not to let him succeed. The mounting pressure pushes her to double down on her commitment to transparency and justice, setting the stage for an inevitable confrontation. In response to the growing tension, the mayor and city council call an emergency meeting with representatives from both the police department and the Oversight Board. This meeting is seen as a last-ditch effort to find common ground and ease the tension between the two groups. Elena, Captain Coleman, police union leaders, and community representatives attend, each carrying the weight of their respective constituencies. During the meeting, Captain Coleman argues passionately against the board's influence, claiming that it hinders officers' ability to perform their duties. He accuses the board of meddling in matters they don't understand, and paints Elena as an outsider trying to disrupt the department's work. His words are condescending, clearly aimed at undermining Elena's authority. Elena responds calmly but firmly, countering Coleman's points with specific examples of how the board has increased transparency and improved community relations. She emphasizes that true safety is built on mutual respect and trust, not fear and intimidation. Her words resonate deeply with city leaders and community members present, marking a pivotal moment where she publicly challenges Coleman's authority and the old ways of the department. The meeting reveals a clear divide between the board and the police department. Coleman leaves visibly frustrated, and some officers follow suit, symbolizing their ongoing resistance. Elena knows that this confrontation has only intensified the battle, but feels a surge of determination to continue the fight, no matter the cost. In response to the police department's opposition, the community rallies to show its support for the Oversight Board. Hundreds of residents gather in front of City Hall, holding signs that call for justice, accountability, and transparency. The demonstration is a powerful display of solidarity, showing that the people stand firmly behind the board's mission. Elena addresses the crowd, expressing her gratitude for their unwavering support. She speaks passionately about the importance of accountability, emphasizing that the board represents the voices of citizens who have been ignored for too long. Her speech is met with applause and cheers, strengthening her bond with the community and solidifying her role as a leader. The demonstration receives extensive media coverage, putting even more pressure on the police department to cooperate with the board. The public's demand for change is undeniable, and even city officials feel compelled to address the department's resistance. This increased visibility creates a sense of urgency, as both sides realize that a resolution is needed. In the midst of this public reckoning, An anonymous whistleblower from within the police department contacts the oversight board. This individual provides information about long-standing issues within the department, including incidents of misconduct that were intentionally concealed to protect certain officers. The whistleblower's testimony is a turning point, giving the board the evidence needed to expose deeper issues. The oversight board, working with the whistleblower's information, uncovers a pattern of misconduct that implicates several high-ranking officers, including individuals close to Captain Coleman. The board's findings are made public, creating a media firestorm. The revelations shock the city, confirming the community's worst fears about the lack of accountability within the police department. As the scandal unfolds, Coleman's credibility suffers. He is forced to confront the fact that the department's attempts to cover up misconduct have come to light. His allies within the department begin to distance themselves, realizing that they can no longer protect him. Coleman's previously unshakable position weakens, leaving him more vulnerable than ever. With mounting evidence against him and the public demanding accountability, Captain Coleman is forced to resign. His resignation is a significant victory for Elena and the oversight board, symbolizing a shift in power and a rejection of the old guard's resistance to change. This moment marks the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter for the police department. The news of Coleman's resignation is met with celebration throughout the community. People gather to acknowledge the board's success and to honor the community's resilience in the face of injustice. This victory feels deeply personal for those who supported the board from the beginning, reinforcing the belief that perseverance can lead to real change. While the community celebrates, Elena takes a moment to reflect on the journey that brought them here. She feels a mix of triumph and sorrow, recognizing that while Coleman's resignation is a victory, it came after years of damage to the community. This moment of introspection reminds Elena of the cost of change, underscoring her commitment to building a better future. With Coleman's resignation, the police department appoints a new interim captain, Jordan Reed, who has a reputation for integrity and an open-minded approach to leadership. Captain Reed meets with the oversight board, expressing a genuine willingness to work collaboratively. His leadership style contrasts sharply with Coleman's, signaling a shift in the department's culture. Under Captain Reed's guidance, the police department begins to implement joint initiatives with the oversight board, including community outreach programs, officer training in cultural sensitivity, and bias reduction workshops. These programs represent a genuine attempt to rebuild trust and repair the relationship between the department and the community. Elena plays an active role in designing and implementing these initiatives, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Her influence is instrumental in shaping policies that prioritize transparency and accountability, ensuring that the reforms are sustainable. She feels proud to be part of this transformation, knowing that her work is making a meaningful impact. As the department and the community come together in new ways, a sense of healing begins to take root. The oversight board, once seen as a controversial entity, is now regarded as an essential part of the city's justice system. Residents start to feel safer, knowing that there are safeguards in place to hold law enforcement accountable. Lucy, who has been by Elena's side from the beginning, reflects on the journey they've shared. She expresses her admiration for Elena's resilience, telling her that she's inspired countless people through her dedication. The two friends talk about their hopes for the city's future, sharing a quiet moment of gratitude for how far they've come together. As the reforms take hold, the community begins to feel a renewed sense of pride. People who once felt ignored or dismissed now see that their voices have power. The Oversight Board has become a symbol of resilience and accountability, representing the community's commitment to justice and equality. This chapter ends with a sense of unity and optimism, showing that true change is possible. In this part, the story reaches a climactic resolution with Captain Coleman's resignation and the establishment of a new, collaborative era within the police department. Through resilience and collective action, Elena and her community succeed in creating lasting change, rebuilding trust, and transforming their city's approach to justice. This final reckoning highlights the power of persistence and solidarity, setting the stage for a hopeful and impactful conclusion. As the new programs and reforms take hold, Elena takes a moment to reflect on the journey that has brought her and her community to this place of healing and accountability. Sitting in her office at the oversight board, she looks back on the challenges, sacrifices, and triumphs she experienced along the way. The journey was difficult, but she feels a deep sense of fulfillment in knowing that the struggle led to meaningful change. Elena receives letters and messages from community members who thank her for her work and dedication. Some share personal stories about how the board's presence has positively affected their lives, while others express gratitude for her courage and resilience. These messages reinforce her sense of purpose, filling her with pride and reinforcing the impact of the movement she helped create. Her father, Thomas, visits her at the board office to congratulate her on everything she's achieved. Their conversation is heartfelt, as Thomas shares his pride in her accomplishments and acknowledges the sacrifices she made to bring about change. Their bond feels stronger than ever, built on mutual respect and shared values. This moment is deeply meaningful for Elena, as her father's support has been a guiding force throughout her journey. To celebrate the reforms and the community's resilience, the city hosts a public event in the same park where Elena once rallied support for the oversight board. The park is decorated with colorful banners and lights, creating a festive atmosphere. Community members, city officials, and local leaders gather to recognize the journey and honor the collective efforts that led to this new era of accountability. Several city officials, including the new interim police captain, Jordan Reed, and Elena herself, give speeches that reflect on the changes and the power of unity. Captain Reed acknowledges the police department's commitment to transparency and pledges to continue building trust with the community. His words reinforce the positive relationship that has developed between law enforcement and residents. Elena's speech is especially moving. She expresses gratitude for the community's unwavering support and shares her hope for a future where justice and accountability remain cornerstones of the city. Her words are met with cheers and applause, symbolizing the unity and pride that have grown within the community. Elena takes a moment to honor Lucy, Ben, and other key supporters who stood by her throughout the journey. She recognizes their courage and contributions, noting that without their strength and encouragement, the movement would not have reached this point. This tribute is heartfelt, as it highlights the personal sacrifices and resilience of those closest to her. As part of the celebration, a mural created by local artists is unveiled on the wall of a community building. The mural features vibrant images of diverse community members standing together, symbolizing strength, resilience, and unity. It includes symbols representing justice, hope, and equality, making it a powerful visual tribute to the Oversight Board's work and the community's determination. Lucy, who was deeply involved in creating the mural, is moved as she sees it completed and unveiled. The mural represents everything they fought for, from Lucy's initial experience with injustice to the community's hard-won victory. She and Elena share a quiet moment, both overwhelmed with pride as they reflect on the impact their friendship and shared vision had on the city. The mural quickly becomes a beloved symbol within the community, representing not only the journey toward justice, but also the hope for a better future. Residents come together to take photos and celebrate, creating a sense of unity and joy. The mural stands as a reminder that the people's voices have power, and that change is possible when a community stands together. As Elena takes in the culmination of her work, she begins to consider her future. The journey has sparked a deep passion for justice and advocacy within her, and she realizes that her role on the Oversight Board may just be the beginning of her public service career. She starts to explore potential paths in public advocacy, community organizing, or even a role in government where she could continue to make a difference on a larger scale. Elena talks with her father, Thomas, about her aspirations. Thomas, drawing from his own experience as a public servant, shares his advice on maintaining integrity, compassion, and resilience in the face of challenges. He encourages her to pursue her goals, reminding her that her dedication and principles make her an effective leader. This conversation is a powerful moment for Elena, as her father's belief in her strengthens her resolve to continue her journey. By the end of the conversation, Elena feels a renewed sense of purpose. She is ready to embrace the future, no longer intimidated by the obstacles that may come. Her experiences on the oversight board have given her the strength and confidence to take on new challenges, and she is excited about the impact she can continue to make. With new possibilities on the horizon, Elena decides to step down from her role on the oversight board to explore other ways to contribute to her community. On her last day, she spends time reflecting on all the board has accomplished. She says her farewells to the team she worked with closely, expressing her gratitude for their dedication and friendship. To mark this transition, Elena takes a walk through her neighborhood with Lucy. They pass by the mural, which has already become a focal point for the community, and reflect on the experiences they've shared. This walk represents closure for both of them, a chance to appreciate the journey they've taken together and to look forward to the future. As they part, Elena makes a quiet promise to herself to continue fighting for justice, no matter where her path leads. She knows that her role in the community isn't over. Rather, it's evolving. She feels a profound sense of peace, knowing that her voice and actions have left a lasting impact and that she has the strength to face whatever challenges lie ahead. In the weeks and months following Elena's departure from the board, the city continues to feel the positive effects of the reforms. The Oversight Board, now an established and respected institution, remains committed to its mission of transparency and accountability. Community relations with the police improve steadily, with officers and residents working together to maintain a safe, inclusive city. At a community forum held at the end of the year, residents gather to share stories about the impact of the board. People speak about how the Oversight Board has given them confidence in the justice system and has strengthened their sense of community pride. The forum reflects the city's growth and the enduring hope that accountability will continue to thrive. As Elena watches from the audience, she feels an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. The legacy of her work is evident in the city's transformed outlook and the pride in each resident's face. She realizes that the journey was never about one person, but about the collective power of a community united by shared values and the pursuit of justice.